the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Comic-Con messes with your brain.
It does. All right.
All right. We're already recording. So anytime we want to start, we can begin.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Wow. Jim's like all stealth on us now.
It is. Yeah. I just love to capture these behind the scenes moments when, we get our guard down.
I'm just curious if the listeners actually appreciate it.
Yeah. If they don't tune out during our long-winded openings, then they definitely tune out during that.
It's like watching Westworld, right? Yeah. It takes 45 minutes just to get into the episode.
Exactly. And for that very purpose, you may have noticed that this episode's opening has been truncated. So you're welcome to anybody out there.
Truncated for your listening pleasure.
Yes. And I actually got a complaint about last week's episode.
Uh-oh.
We mentioned that Stan Lee was one of the only people that created his own universe. And I think we also brought up J.K. Rowling, but then it was pointed out to me
George
Lucas, I think we brought up as well.
We brought up Lucas, yeah.
That there's plenty that
Martin,
Martin.
Martin.
Yeah. You could actually even say that people like Vince McMahon created their own universe. They're people all over the place.
All right, fine. I'll take that to task.
Yeah, but we were giving props to the man because you got to admit that Stan Lee is really in his own category. So there you go. Our first official retraction. We apologize for anybody that we slighted out there.
I guess there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But that just makes me happy that people are listening.
Yeah, we have the ability to cheese somebody off once in a while.
Not our main goal, but obviously.
Yeah. Please give us even if we upset you, give us an email. Let us know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I take umbrage with
and since we didn't tell you at the beginning, our email is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us. So this episode, we are getting into Creed. We're some Rocky. We've never really talked about Rocky before. In TMI history. So this is a first for us.
And it may be our last.
It may be. Because I think once you talk about Rocky once, you kind of close the door on the subject.
Are you implying that he's a one-note character?
It's kind of a repetitive character. Yeah, it is a one-note character. So,
well, you know what you're getting into, right?
When you go see a Rocky movie, you get what you're promised. And
that's true.
In spades, usually.
Absolutely. Do we want to talk a little news first?
News, yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay, we have a couple little things here. So let me ask you gentlemen a question. Did you enjoy Daredevil 3, Season 3 on Netflix?
I'm about halfway through.
Well, enjoy it while you can because it's been canceled.
Oh!
Big caveat to that.
Yeah, the Disney War Machine is just marching forward. Everything is being pulled, and you want to watch Daredevil 4, you want to watch Iron Fist, Luke Cage, any of these shows at this point, you're going to have to drop a dime on this Disney streaming service. Disney Plus.
But they are saying that they're only going to do content that's like PG, right?
That I don't know. So that's interesting. These shows really stood out being kind of, especially Daredevil, really being gritty. Especially, you get into Punisher as well. So
yeah, they may want to reconsider that if they did make that announcement that they were
right. Maybe it could be Disney Plus at night or something, and they just Adult Swim.
Although Netflix still is committed to airing the next season of Punisher and the next season of Jessica Jones, but once they do, those series are done.
They're all going
as well.
Away. And they also, I know we've talked about this before, but that Scarlet Witch show, it is now Scarlet Witch and Vision. So they have their own show coming.
Suitably so, yes.
So maybe they follow the comic book storyline. They'll settle down in a little house in Livonia, New Jersey, and have twin kids and live happily ever after and never have any adventures. It'll be like a sitcom. Oh, Vision. Yeah. You dropped a turkey plate again by phasing through it.
It's too bad they don't have a TV guide anymore, because I would love to see the captions of that sitcom. Hilarity ensues.
Hilarity ensues. When Hawkeye drops in unannounced. They should just do that. They should just make one of these just a straight up spoof.
They should. Yeah, with Scarlet Witch thinks that Vision is engaged to another when it's actually his twin brother. Yeah.
Just take every Three's Company plotline.
And we also have the Loki show.
The
Loki show. That's what they should call it.
Yeah, he should be like Larry next door. He should be like the wacky neighbor.
Vision and Scarlet Witch. Yeah.
Pops in every now.
Oh, Loki.
No.
That would be the tagline. Loki.
I like it. Get on that. I heard that one of you actually saw King Kong on Broadway. It was yet to be determined which one of it was.
There was some confusion as to which one it was, but we've determined that it was me.
Yes. And fresh off your visit to Broadway, can you give us a non-spoiler? Well, I guess if you don't know it's King Kong.
If you don't know the King Kong story, then you should have no business going down there to actually see this play.
No business, like sure.
I am pretty much a Broadway newbie. This is maybe the third Broadway show that I've seen ever.
The show was built just for you.
Another one being Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, which was similar in the fact that it was just mostly special effects and a musical at the same time. And just like Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, and my wife made this point as well as we were walking out, do we really need to see this story in song? I'm really not a Broadway goer, as I've said. And the jazz hands dancing in unison aspect of it.
Was this Kong did he put on a top hat and break into putting on the Ritz?
No, we had,
I'd pay money for it.
He did not do that. Like the Kong puppet / animatronic did pretty much everything but that. We had Ann Darrow, we had Carl Denham, all breaking into song at various points.
Okay.
And, they were listenable songs, but again, it doesn't really gel with the King Kong storyline. Having said that, that was my beef with the show. The actual Kong puppet, when he reveals himself, was amazing. I'm not entirely sure how they do it completely. He has puppeteers that are visible on stage, but really they kind of melt into the background once Kong is there, because he is so lifelike, so much expression in the face. There's so much movement in the face that I didn't know if there was somebody inside his head.
Oh, cool.
Manually moving it, or if it was all electronic.
But does stuff like that take you out of the show where now your brain is working like, oh my, how are they doing this?
Yeah, a little bit.
Opposed to just accepting him as a performer on stage.
Yes, it did. But I wasn't really seeing this as a detriment, because I was amazed every time that Kong was on, and it was worth every penny to be in this presence of this thing. And there was one point, because you could see that there's wires holding him up, lifting up his arms to places where the puppeteers that are actually physically holding the hands can't go to. So it's a mixture of strings. It's a mixture.
Oh wow! It's almost like a marionette mixture.
It's almost like a giant marionette. Yeah.
Wow.
So because of that, Kong is kind of limited where he can move on the stage. But at one point, I don't know how they did it exactly, but the ceiling moved, and Kong came right up to the lip of the stage, and was inches from touching the people in the front row.
Really? That's cool.
The puppeteer would move his hand out like he was investigating the audience at one point. The story stopped. He moved out to the front of the stage, was sniffing the people in the front row, and roared, and a few people jumped back in the front row.
That's pretty wild.
So that was great.
So at the end, when he breaks loose,
I was in the balcony.
So when he breaks loose at the end, he doesn't step on anybody. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
Row. It's not like a Gallagher concert where you get watermelon on your face.
No, it wasn't. But the special effects, other than Kong, were also first rate. On the scene, there's a lot of background projection. So the scene when they're on the ship going to Skull Island, the stage is going up and down. Actually, it's not going up and down. It's the projection that's going up and down. But it looks like the stage is going.
Were they like state of the art, like CG LED screens? Or was it a little more low-tech?
I think it was a mixture. They were state-of-the-art screens, but I think they were designed to look low-tech because of the 30s background.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So aesthetically, they're trying to achieve that.
Everything was sepia or black and white that was being shown.
Oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that because we saw Anastasia last year and I was absolutely blown away because most of the stage, it was very barren, but the screens were all LED. And so they were constantly changing the graphics on like these very simple screens, but would have elaborate backgrounds, like digital, like I said, high definition.
Yeah. The entire back wall of the stage was covered in one giant screen. And when Kong was running, the puppeteers would mimic him running, and the scenery would rush by and it would look, for all intents and purposes, like he was running. So it was an amazing feat that they pulled.
Oh, that's cool. Any T-Rex?
No, but they did pull out the snake from the '76 version.
Nice.
So
Wow.
He does have a battle with a snake, which is also very impressive as well. The snake actually bites him, and Anne has to attend to his wounds.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
So, and then if you're wondering how they do the Empire State Building,
I was just going to get there. Yep.
the stage is covered in dry ice. It's
Above the clouds.
Above the clouds, and you just see the top of the Empire State Building where Kong is perched. That rounded, old style, Art Deco, with the way that it used to look.
So you could stand. So you could fully stand on it because there was
no
no
spire.
spire. There was no spire back then.
So then, of course, the backdrop would be like New York City,
planes,
and the planes. And
physical planes,
no physical planes. You heard it was surround sound, so you heard the planes coming in, and then when the guns started, it was like laser lights all on Kong.
Interesting.
So and then of course he came out and took a bow at the end.
Nice. Well, as he should.
And he's the only one that got a standing ovation. I'm sure that must rub the cast the wrong way because they get their applause, right?
Diva.
They all come out. Then Ann Darrow comes out as the last one to take a bow before Kong.
And
she doesn't even get a standing ovation.
Like a polite. It's like a golf clap. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
We know. Well, they know why you're there.
Yeah, he is the star of the show. Definitely.
Okay. Very cool. I like it. Nice.
Yeah. Anybody on the fence about seeing it, I would recommend it heartily.
Just for the spectacle.
Just for the spectacle. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. One other news item, and then we can move on to our main topic, which is obviously we're in the Christmas season right now. I'm sure if you didn't watch it live, you probably DVR'd it, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I did not.
You did not? Okay. Well, obviously after 60 years, this show's now coming under fire. People are upset by the fact that Rudolph is being bullied. And I'm like, it took this long for people to realize that Santa was an ass? Because he really wanted nothing to do with this.
Yeah, Santa is not a very likable character in this. No,
special. None of them wanted anything to do with this poor guy with his mutated nose. And then the minute they run into any kind of an issue and they're like, wait a minute, we can use that nose. Then all of a sudden they want to be friends with him again.
Santa is like upset with Blitzen, it seems, for even having Rudolph.
Yeah. Oh, you're such a disappointment. So big news controversy, people. It's all over the news right now that Rudolph is under fire. But you can't, it was a book long. It was a song. What are you going to do? Go back and throw Gene Autry under the bus that he wrote this song? So poor Rudolph. It's been a staple for so long, and now all of a sudden it's an issue. So
this will be no surprise to you, but I have got a bootleg copy of the 1979 broadcast of Rudolph with commercials from the CBS network. And it even has the old CBS special opening right before.
Oh, cool. Nice. I think my mother years ago bought the Rankin Baskin, the box set with all of them. And I refused to watch them. I like that was a big thing. You if you didn't catch it the night of premiere, it showed, you had to wait a whole other year. Now these kids can put it on and watch it 50 times in one day.
Yeah, they can watch it in the summer if they wanted to. Okay, news out, right? News out.
News out.
So that brings us to our featured film this week, which is Creed 2. And we kind of really have to talk about the original Creed if we're talking about Creed 2.
Yeah, you have to. You have to start.
So this is a new franchise, which is built from the Rocky franchise. So we have Michael B. Jordan playing Adonis Creed, who is Apollo Creed's son.
And you find out eventually that he is a bastard child. He was born from an illicit affair Apollo had with another woman. She passed away and he was put in a foster care system. Apollo's wife, Felicia Rashad, who did not play his wife in the Rocky movies, but she plays his widow in these two movies. And she finds him and brings him into their very affluent home. So you never really find out who the mom is.
Well, she is Claire Huxtable.
She is. And I will say right now, whoever cast her in this movie, thank you. Because this woman, first of all, is ageless. She looks exactly the same as she did in The Cosby Show 30 years ago. Yes. But second of all, I mean, she just needs more work. Come on, you can't go wrong with this woman.
No.
So
especially in the second one, she's really steps it up in the second one as well.
Yeah. So we need to get this woman more work, and she's got to be. I mean, she's got to be 70 something, right? But yeah, I absolutely. It's funny because you see a woman like this, and then you're just like, why is this woman not in every movie? Mm-hmm. I loved her in this, especially in the first one. But yeah, you're right. She really kind of stepped it up in the second one.
Yeah. So Creed really sets up the story where Adonis Creed finds out who he is. So as you said, Apollo Creed's widow comes and adopts him. And so he grows up with her and, finds out who he is. And then he becomes a boxer on his own, much to his mother's dismay. His adopted mother's dismay.
Yeah, so it's Bizarro Rocky. It's the exact same storyline as Rocky, except where Rocky came from nothing and worked his way up. This kid, for all intents and purposes, had an affluent, very well-established world. Mommy got him a nice job in an office, and he had a nice promotion, and he threw it all away because he was obsessed with this boxing. And there's a great scene early on where he goes home after he quits, and he doesn't tell his mom. And he's watching the original.
He quits his office. He quits his office job.
Yes, correct. Yeah. But he goes home and he immediately goes on YouTube and he finds the Rocky Apollo fight. And he's shadow boxing on the screen, following punch for punch. And it's a really nice. You immediately see where this character is kind of like living in his dad's shadow and just wants to prove himself. He feels like that's all he has to offer is this fight.
And we couldn't really have a movie like this without the involvement of Mr. Sylvester Stallone. So Adonis goes and looking for Rocky, with the hopes that he will train him to be a fighter. And of course, Rocky, turns him down a couple of times, and finally he gets one over. And then we have that necessary training montage that we always get in a Rocky movie.
That's I think it's in the contract that you have to have.
Yeah. So that's the basic setup. We've got Tessa Thompson as well.
Yes, who does a phenomenal job.
Playing Bianca, I think her name is.
Bianca, yep, you are correct.
So she is a recording artist in the first Creed who is trying to make a name for herself. And so her character has her own thing going on. So it's a very unique kind of a setup and a dynamic between. So she's not just the hanger-on kind of girlfriend.
So I watched these back to back. I made no bones about the fact that I had not seen the first one. So I watched it almost immediately before I went out and watched Creed 2. And the one thing that I'm absolutely blown away by, well, when you get into Rocky 4, you see there's a completely different fighting style going on. I mean, you're talking 30 plus, 40 plus years. There's a bunch of numbers. So, but that first fight where he's in, that's all one shot. I actually looked it up afterwards because I'm like, it's almost impossible to watch this and not realize that camera never stops moving. That follows him up into the ring, and then it just continually circles around. Even like when the bell rings and they go back to their corners, it never stops. It never cuts. And I'm like, there's got to be. I mean, there's cheats that you can get away with it. It's all one steady cam shot, and it's like a 12-minute set piece, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely phenomenal. So that really kind of escalated this movie for me. I mean, I was blown away by that, and it's sorely missed in the second one, the way that they shot that.
Yeah, well, it's not the same director.
No, I know.
Came from Creed to the and just the speed of Michael Jordan's hands is amazing in this one.
It really is. I mean, that's you think about these method actors that step into these roles and I mean, the amount of prep work that these guys must do. Because, you go to Rocky 4, and you can see, they're throwing the old haymakers and, the camera angle, if you turn it 30 degrees, you realize he's missing them by about 4 feet. It's like the old Captain Kirk swing away. And in this one, I mean, they're landing punches. They're hitting each other.
Yeah.
And it's visceral. It's bloody. It's brutal.
Yeah, it reminded me of, what was that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what the name of it was.
It was the same thing. He trained as a boxer.
You realize the brutality of the sport.
So both movies, of course, the death of Apollo Creed looms large over the character of Adonis Creed, right? So the first movie has callbacks to Rocky IV just because the character is it comes out of the death of his father, really. And that's what motivates him. So, and then the second movie, even more so on Rocky IV, because when we get the son of Ivan Drago, who returns, Dolph Lundgren, who I love just from Universal Soldier, that classic he did with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude.
And then, of course, we had Dolph as He-Man in 1987 after Rocky IV.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, Dolph returns as Ivan Drago in Creed II, and he's training his son, who is all set to make a splash on the U.S. boxing scene, much like Drago himself did back in the 80s. And it's so interesting to see this because we now see Ivan Drago as an exile, really, in the Ukraine. He's become a laughingstock in his home country after Rocky beat him. So he's been training his son his whole life for this fight, for this moment, to kind of reclaim his own glory back in the Soviet Union.
This guy, Ivan Drago, reminds me of every sports dad I've encountered in the last 15 years.
He's a beauty pageant mom. Really, that's what he is.
That's what it is. He's living vicariously through his kid. He stumbled and fell, and you know what? Now he's got to try and reclaim his glory through his child.
And I have to say that following his one-note performance in Rocky IV, that this, not that this is like,
two notes.
Not that this is on a De Niro-esque level by any means. But he improved his performance by 1,000% from Rocky IV to Creed II.
By aging?
By aging, maybe. I enjoyed watching him in this.
Well, he's a more sympathetic character, especially when you get toward the end. Can I ask you? So, did Victor even have a line of dialogue in this? No, I really don't think he spoke.
No, he referenced his mother a couple of times, right? He's like, "What is she doing?
Yes.
That's why she left us."
Right.
Yeah.
They really should have just called this. At this point, we're deep into Creed 2, right? We're just gonna go. They should have called this Drago, right?
It's all about that. Yeah.
It starts with him. I mean, that's the movie opens with Drago, and because I watched Rocky IV immediately after this, it is almost a beat for beat recreation of Rocky IV.
Now, and I brought up Rocky III before.
Yeah.
The hero is cocky at the beginning because he's on top of the world. He takes a beat down in the middle of the movie.
Right.
And then he comes back to be the winner again at the end. Just like Rocky III, when the same thing happened with Rocky and Clubber Lang. I
mean, again, right down to the scuttle during the press conference, and they hit all those same beats. I like this movie a lot. They brought Brigitte Nielsen out of retirement, and she didn't have any dialogue either.
I was surprised that talk about somebody Dolph has excelled since Rocky IV. I think Brigitte has really deteriorated since Rocky.
Well, she was married to Stallone. Correct?
She was, yeah.
Right, for like a split second in time. Yeah. Was it during like Cobra or something?
No, I think it was because of this that they got married.
They got together.
They made Cobra after that. But remember, she was Red Sonja as well.
That's true. Yeah. So we haven't really talked about Rocky. Sylvester Stallone is a character. And again, after watching Rocky IV, the guy's gotten better with age as far as acting. I think as he goes.
Oh, yeah.
He broke things in me that ain't never been fixed. It ain't worth it.
I mean, those earlier movies are goofy.
I do have to admit, The Expendables aren't the apex of cinema.
Right.
But he is very good in the Rocky movie, in the Creed movies as Rocky. Yeah, I will.
Right. Yeah, because he's playing his age. You're not Harrison Ford out running around in the jungles at 75 years old. He's a 60. He's the same age Burgess Meredith was when he made Rocky. He's 69 years old.
Yeah.
He probably, especially when he gets sick, they played it down a little bit, but he's a little schlumpy. He's a little bit slower. Obviously, he took a couple pounds to the head over the years, but I really liked his character.
And actually, my favorite scene in Creed 2 is the restaurant scene where Drago
that was
comes
intense.
up at surprise. That was a great scene. It was really...
And then when Victor shows up, you're like, all right, are they gonna like beat up on this guy? Are they gonna beat up on the old man?
And then the line that Drago has, "No pictures, me." You know,
right? He's like, yeah, no.
I ain't got no pictures of that.
Yeah, right. I mean, you said it before, which is, you know what you're getting into when you go to these Rocky movies. I thought the music was phenomenal. I loved it. I'm not a big rapper kind of fan, but it works so much with this character, and especially with Tess. You do miss Paulie as a character a little bit.
Yes,
I think.
And we'll get into Paulie when we start talking about Rocky IV.
Yeah, but again, you know, I mean, these movies play you like a fiddle, especially that first Creed. When he gets knocked down and he's on the mat and the countdown, and he just gets a flashback to everything that's led him to this moment. It's like, it's so stupid, but you just get emotionally welled up, and you're just like, he can do it. And you're like, he's going to win.
Yeah, you know? And they're totally playing your strings as an audience, you know, with the swelling music and everything, but it works. It does work.
No, again, like you said, you know what you're getting in for, and yet you're still emotionally invested. I wasn't as emotionally invested in this one as I was in the first one.
I agree. I liked the fight better in this one, but the backstory, I think it could have used maybe 20 to 30 minutes cut out of this movie. I appreciate the fact that they really tried to focus on the relationship between Tessa Thompson and Michael Jordan.
Right. Well, she's such a strong character that she can't just be the doubting wife in the background waiting at home at the kitchen watching this on TV.
Right.
You know,
but
even
still, at the same time, give me the boom boom. You know, I don't want to see them bouncing the baby. I want the boom boom.
What's an exposition?
Exposition is critical information that the audience needs in order to understand the story.
That sounds boring.
Boring? It's the most important part!
Bro, everyone knows the most important part of the movie be them explosions.
Yeah, that baby aged like 6 months in like a two minute window. It went from like an infant.
Yeah, I'm here to see Drago. That's what I want to see in the ring. So the backstory was a little bit much for me, and I do agree that I like the original Creed better than this sequel.
Right.
There was more emotion, I think, to the original Creed.
Yeah, I think they tried too hard to just shoehorn the emotional connection between Drago and past of what happened. We did get our workout montage, so that's always a plus. You know, this time it was in the desert as opposed to Russia.
Yeah, and I wanted to see some chopping wood. I wanted to see, some boulders.
Oh, no, we got sledgehammers in the scene. You know, after a while, it was like, all right, well, what else are we going to do? What are you going to do? Can I tell you the opening scene of this? Creed is going into the ring, and all of a sudden, Rocky starts talking to him, and you see Rocky in the mirror. And I'm like, are they going to go all Sixth Sense on us and find out that, like, Rocky's going to be, like, his mentor through this whole thing, and then you're going to find out that he was a ghost, that he's been dead? Like, that's where I really thought it was going. But then he starts interacting with the other characters, and I'm like, all right, I guess that's going out the window.
The other thing about an interesting choice that they made was to kind of set up very early on the relationship between Drago and his son, that his son was a little bit pissed off all the time at his father for putting him through this.
Right. Again, going back to the sports dad, like you said, the beauty pageant mom. You know, at the expense of the kid. The parent is so obsessed with making this kid successful that he's miserable. He doesn't want to do this. He's being forced into it.
And it really humanized that character in a way that Rocky IV never even touched on. Well, it did kind of touch on him with Drago at the end. But it really...
because you see
the sympathetic. Yeah, it made him very sympathetic.
And he lost a wife, you know, and then they go to that big... Because now all of a sudden, you know, he's a big deal, and they go to this club. It was like this big mansion, and, you know, and the wife shows up, and then the kid is just like... Because he was like, these are the people that threw you to the curb. I can't watch any boxing intro, though, without thinking Real Steel. Do you remember that with the kid and the robot?
Yes, you brought this movie up numerous times.
I know.
And but I want to say why they did not just call that Rock'em Sock'em Robot.
Maybe there was a licensing issue. I don't know. When did they move the Rocky statue off the steps?
It was never on the steps, was it?
It never was?
No, I think it was.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take you to task on that because I believe it was.
Well, thank you for reminding me, because that also brings up a very meta moment in this where people are running up the stairs doing...
Right, correct.
They wouldn't know that unless they saw the movie. Yeah.
You He maybe put it in his memoirs or something.
Yeah, maybe he did. Maybe CNN filmed it. One of his runs up the stairs and broadcast it. Who knows?
The other thing I really liked was, and they did this in the first Creed and again in this one, which was just Rocky going to, obviously Adrian and Paulie are buried next to each other. Was he her brother?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they were. Okay, so that makes sense. But he would just pull out a chair and sit there and talk to them. There was a backstory about his son, who I think we saw in Rocky Balboa. You see him show up, and it's Milo, what's his name?
Ventriglia, yeah.
Ventimiglia. Yeah, he shows up, his son Robert. So, there's another storyline. There's this kind of dual father-son storyline thing going on there. And then I'm going to make this comparison, and you can agree or disagree, which is Creed to me is The Force Awakens.
What are you talking about?
All right.
I don't know if I can agree or disagree.
All right. Well, just hear me out for 1 second.
Our silence answered that question.
Exactly. Right. So you have an established universe revisited in a future timeline with deep connections to the original main characters. So Adonis / Ray. New characters brought in. You've got Luke / Rocky, who are now mentors and teachers, bringing the new generation up and in. You have old villains who've been reestablished as well. And Victor Drago is basically Kylo Ren. He is looking for approval, acceptance from his grandfather. So you have Ivan / Vader.
You've been spending too much time in your truck.
I could always bring it back to Star Wars. Force Awakens.
All right, Jim, do you know what Jeff's talking about here?
No.
He does know. He does have I think what Jeff is trying to get at is they're trying to mine the same old material.
By bringing,
in a nice way, he was saying that. Yeah, they're trying to mine the same stuff from the first movie into the new movie. So, yeah, I agree. I agree on that fact.
Okay, it was just a random thought. And according to my movie math, Creed 2 plus Rocky 4, we're going to talk about Rocky 4. Wouldn't that equal Leonard Part 6? We've already got Claire Huxtable.
You got Felicia Rashad in there. Yeah.
We do. Yeah. And that's it. Mic drop. I'm out.
Should we rate Creed and Creed 2 since we're talking about them both, you think?
Yeah.
I think it's only fair. I think you cannot talk about Creed 2 without bringing
No, you can't. No. And unfortunately, Creed is a much superior movie.
So what are we talking in terms of popcorn buckets?
I'm going to say 4 on Creed.
Okay.
I really like this movie. I liked it a lot, probably more than I expected. I mean, I grew up watching these boxing movies. We all watched the Rocky stuff. I remember going, especially Rocky 4, going Thanksgiving weekend, going home from college, going to watch this thing. I say 4 on Creed, and I'm going to go 3 on Creed 2.
So, Mike, did you watch Creed or just Creed 2 for this?
No, I watched them both. I would go 3.5 on Creed and 2.5 on Creed 2.
Drops a whole point.
And Jim, I'm with you. Just show me the boom boom, show me the training, and it could have definitely cut out like 30 minutes.
Yeah. It was a long movie. Yeah. It's like 2 hours 15, 2 hours 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, first Creed is long too.
You've got to build up in the first.
Yes,
Creed.
Correct. Right.
Yeah. The Creed 2 doesn't really sustain itself. It's not.
No, and I don't think they make him as likable a character. No, you don't.
No, it's interesting you say that because I don't think they do. I think that Victor Drago is more.
That's why I said it should actually be called Drago.
Yeah.
Concentrate on that character because he was a much more sympathetic. You got an understanding because again, like you said, Rocky 4, he's straight up badass. You lost, but now you see the ramifications of it, and you really kind of feel sorry for him and the kid. You feel sorry for the kid who's just trying to get his daddy's approval.
The fact that during the last fight, Adonis Creed comes out from the dressing room to fight Victor Drago. Tessa Thompson is there rapping in front of Adonis Creed, telling Victor Drago how he's going to kick his ass. It's like, this is not very humble. He hasn't learned much.
Well, she's no James Brown. Let's put it that way.
But at least Rocky went to the cabin. He got humble. He didn't have any of the trappings of modern training or anything like that. He just got back to basics. But it doesn't look like from that whole montage that Michael Jordan learned anything from.
No.
Yeah.
Just how to
he was still a cocky kid at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So I would give I'm right there with you guys. That I liked Creed a lot more than I did Creed 2, even though Creed 2 does have its moments. So I would give Creed probably 3 3/4.
Okay.
The original, and I would go 3 on Creed 2. Just because they did bring the boom boom at the end. I did like the fight at the end of the movie.
They did.
Yeah.
It's a long haul getting there, though.
It is. It is.
And it's not like there was any kind of earth-shattering twist.
So let's make our trip to the concession stand, I think. And then when we come back, we will discuss Rocky 4. Well, plenty of you out there have been waiting for. So here we go.
It's intermission time. Just 5 minutes to showtime. Time for refreshment. You're invited to visit the refreshment stand, where you'll be greeted with fast, friendly service. You'll find hot dogs, juicy hamburgers, and mouth-watering delicious pizza. There are refreshing hot and cold beverages, ice-cold cola, and orange drink. Goes great with an order of crispy French fries. Then there's a wide selection of your favorite candies and other delicious snacks. And there's always a fresh batch of hot buttered popcorn. So visit the refreshment stand now and add to your enjoyment of the movie. We're happy to have you with us tonight and hope you'll come back often.
And now we're about to touch on the subject of 1985's Rocky 4.
That was a very good year, my friend.
It was.
That
For
it
music,
was.
for movies, for me personally, everything. It was.
Listen, this soundtrack, and we just talked about the soundtrack in Creed, which is phenomenal. It's great. It works. This one, every song is just a 80s anthem. It's a rock anthem. You know that this soundtrack actually won a Razzie for worst soundtrack.
It is pretty bad because.
But it's so bad it's good.
But no, these are like bad 80s songs. They're not
Hearts
good
on Fire?
80s songs. Hearts on.
I mean, it is. Yeah, it is.
And then the fact that Survivor tried to replicate Eye of the Tiger with Burning Heart.
Yeah.
And the Burning Heart. And it's terrible. It has got references to the Cold War and the lyrics.
Living in America, James Brown.
Unless you're doing the final countdown, I don't want to hear about that in a song,
That's funny that you brought up Europe. There's some kind of story involved whether or not that song was actually in this movie, and it's not. Yeah. But there's a couple beats that really kind of replicate, and it sounds like it's in it, but it's not.
So, okay, before we get into this, a lot of people love this movie, Rocky 4. And I saw it in the theater. Jeff, you did too.
Absolutely. Thanksgiving weekend from college.
I'm sure you did too, Mike.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I drove all the way down to Elmira.
And I loved it when I saw it in the theater. And I don't think I've seen it in its entirety since that day in 1985 until I watched it for the show. The memory that I had of it and what I saw yesterday is such a disconnect.
They don't gel.
They don't gel. The fight is still great at the end, but it's so funny is that they try to build the events of this movie up so much in the Creed movies. And then you actually watch the events.
Yeah.
This is corny and it's badly acted and it's.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said where Stallone, definitely becomes better actor as he gets older. Yeah. But he wrote and directed this.
Yes, he did. They have elevated this. The Creed movies have elevated this movie to a point where it could have never been on its own. Now it's just
it's epic.
The reference point for the Creed movies is Rocky 4.
Yeah. Like you said, the fight scenes are great. But again, comparing this to the fight scenes in Creed, they're all pulled back shots like you're watching this on HBO at home. There's no close up. Everything is, like I said, it's an old school haymaker. There's no real footwork. Rocky's like just swinging away.
They're not guarding themselves.
Right. Or connecting for that matter.
Yeah, or connecting. So let's get into the plot here. So we've got this fighter, Ivan Drago, who is in no way or any shape or form commissioned by any kind of boxing regulatory board. He just comes to America and wants to fight people. That's basically the setup of this movie. Yeah. So nobody's giving him
and blood they just tests. Let him.
Yeah, so there's no regulatory board that he has to go through, and he's obviously juicing up. There's one point in an early scene during a press conference when they ask him about the rumor of steroid abuse in Russian athletes. And there's such a telegraphed, worried look from Brigitte Nielsen to whoever, like the trainer guy is. Oh, they caught us, you know. So yeah, so he shows up and he wants to fight Rocky specifically.
Well, he was the champ. Again, you're in the middle of the Cold War. It's like, you know, we didn't beat you to the moon, so let's beat you on a wrestling mat.
So the character in this movie is really a living stereotype of what we were afraid of, I think, at the time in terms of Russia. And you bring in Nikolai Volkov from the WWF. All those stereotypes are in this character of Ivan Drago, I think. So then we kind of switch over to where Rocky is. To make Jeff's point from before, he's very much at the point where Creed is at the beginning of Creed 2, where he's on top of the world. He's got his mansion. So he's really sitting pretty at the beginning of this movie. So much so, in fact, that you see a birthday party for his brother-in-law, Paulie, and the gift that he gives him.
Oh, the robot, man. You can't go wrong with that robot.
It's the robot.
Please make a wish.
It's creepy. That talks, that thing.
Creepy? These are great. I wish I had one of these when I was growing up. Come on, make a wish like he says.
I wish I wasn't in this nightmare.
The entrance of the robot was just so
it was like synthesized. Yeah, it was a build-up.
It's like something right out of the Buck Rogers TV show, or Tweaky. Yeah, beady beady beady.
Here's your cake.
It's just the forced
I'll clean
comic relief here. It's but I did read some stuff about this, that this is the same robot, and this is very touching actually, because Sylvester Stallone's son in reality was autistic. Sylvester Stallone had this robot in reality to help bring him out, and they brought that actual robot into the movie. So this is not like just a movie prop.
So see, now we're making fun of it, and you just
now I feel bad, but yeah, that's what it is in reality. But still, I didn't think it had a place in a Rocky movie. I thought that was just ridiculous.
Well, it was the 80s,
and apparently it has its own cult following. This robot.
It should.
I think it should.
It really should. I need to join that cult.
Has the robot starred in other movies?
Short Circuit. He auditioned for the part, but he didn't get it.
They just took the AI and they put it into a different robot body.
You see all the other robots lined up for auditions.
Yeah, he didn't get it. Did this robot have a name in Rocky IV?
I don't remember.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you think they would have gone out of their way to
because towards the end, Paulie had it with a female voice, and it was
serving him drinks or stuff.
I don't know.
As most robots should.
Yeah. So Adrian is still very much alive in this movie.
And getting better with age. She definitely looked better than she has in past movies. But I think they frumped her up in the early ones.
Because we see her in Rocky IV. They have a montage of the earlier Rocky movies right in the middle of it. Yeah. So let's get into the whole fact why they made these Creed movies. The exhibition bout between Apollo Creed and Ivan Drago, which James Brown almost officiates over with his Living in America. I feel good. And you can see Drago is just confused, where he's like standing in the middle of the boxing ring, which they bring up on hydraulics into the arena as this whole James Brown review is going on, and he's just not knowing what he's seeing. So that was a nice little scene. I think that humanized him a little bit.
Right, because he's
before he turns on before he turns on the killing switch.
I cannot be defeated. I defeat all man. Defeat real champion. If he dies.
Kill mode.
And apparently, during this fight, some backstory as well is that Dolph, at one point, unscripted, threw, in a very wrestling type move, threw Carl Weathers into the ropes and knocked him over. And Carl got so pissed off at this that he threatened to walk from the film. So Sylvester Stallone had to calm them both down. He had to tell Dolph Lundgren to tone it down a bit. And he brought Carl back so they could finish the scene. So there was some real life tension going on between these two. But even though the movie itself and the set piece is kind of corny, because of what you've seen in Creed 2, it really elevates the moment because you're anticipating it now. This is what shaped Michael Jordan's character for these two movies, this moment that's coming.
It's still shocking, but you're right. It's got a syrupy, corny coating around it.
And of course, we see, and this is haunting Rocky in the Creed movies, that he could have thrown in the towel.
Yeah.
But Apollo told him no, like several times, told him not to. And he did not. though, which resulted in his death. Then immediately following this, you see the guilty montage scene of Rocky driving.
Oh,
That's when we have that pounding.
That was Hearts on Fire, I think.
That was Hearts on Fire.
Yeah.
And you see all the various scenes from the old Rocky movies.
Yeah.
Adrian.
There's actually there's a funny little goof in there, which is during that montage, they show scenes from the Rocky Drago fight that hasn't even happened yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a couple little. Somebody editing had a little too much fun. They're like,
okay,
boxing scenes. So speaking of that, do you think Mr. T got residuals for showing that Rocky 3 scene at the beginning?
I think Survivor did as well for Eye of the Tiger. Yeah,
Eye of the Tiger. Clubber Lang. I should have brought him back. They should have brought back his son.
They should. Yeah, that's what they could do for Creed 3, right?
There you go.
Clubber Lang.
Right? If you're gonna mine this crap, just go for it.
Bring back Thunderlips while you're at it too.
His agent's already on the phone.
So that brings us from. So Rocky decides to take on Drago, and we get the most epic training sequence I think ever committed to film.
Oh, it's phenomenal! It is so phenomenal because it's old school. Right. So first of all, the fight's in Russia. And he agrees to it. He's like, yeah, okay, we're going. They're like, nobody knew this was going into the press conference.
So Ivan takes all this trouble to come to America to fight people. Then immediately he wants to go back to Russia. Yeah,
I got you now. Come with me. Come with me.
Yeah. And that whole, talking about Brigitte Nielsen, that whole impassioned speech that she has at the press conference.
You call him a killer. He's a professional fighter, not a killer. You have this belief that you are better than us. You have this belief that this country is so very good and we are so very bad.
That's probably the height of her career right there.
Yeah, well, that and that metal bikini in Red Sonja.
Okay, so Rocky travels to Russia and he goes to
wearing a leather coat, by the way.
Wearing a leather coat, yep, leather boots as well. It's leather jogging boots made just for snow jogging.
That's right. Yo, Rock, you picked this place.
And you would think that the Russians would be like, take every precaution that he could not train successfully.
Right.
Kind of leave him alone, right? And then I think he makes.
Well, he outruns them in the car. Yeah. You know, they got chains on their tires, yet they still spin out and end up crashed into a snowbank. He runs away. Which
allows him to make the run up the steps, but instead of the steps, it's the run up the mountain. Yeah, which he does the big rock.
You think he did that? You think he did that himself? That had to have been him.
I think it was him. Yeah. I think maybe the helicopter dropped him off the top of that mountain right before they filmed that scene. Like, I don't think he.
Maybe they just filmed it in reverse and he's like running down the mountain backwards. They're like, we'll fix it in editing. Don't worry about it.
But as we said before, part of his training technique is chopping wood, moving some boulders.
He's actually bench pressing his friends at some point. That's always a fun thing.
So whether or not
shows up. Just
I don't know if he actually sparred with anybody during this training, but except to do this stuff. But apparently, this helps you in boxing too.
Well, what's fun is that you saw the juxtaposition between his old school and whatever he was doing, Drago was doing, but in this sophisticated computer. You know, he was all monitors and they were sensors and scanners and computer crap.
Right, and juicing him up at the same time as well, injecting him with whatever. Yeah.
Jim, you did say that you couldn't wait for him to say, "I will break you," and he says that in Creed 2 twice, but he says slightly variations on that little phrase.
You must break him, because he has to tell. You know, his son can't really say it, so he's got to be the one that delivers the line.
Right.
Going back to the exhibition bout when they're just facing off and the refs giving him his spiel. And Carl goes to hit his gloves, and they don't move. And just right in that moment, he knows that he's in for something.
Oh, crap.
What did I do?
Yep.
So that brings us right up to the fight with Rocky Balboa.
Well, did you notice that the Russian commentator, when they bring him out, they call him Drago. They don't call him Drago.
And somehow the USA Network got permission to commentate on this fight.
And I think there was like 12 people in the audience.
Yeah,
you think that the entire state of Russia would be there because they got nothing better to do.
Yeah, you would think that would be the last network that Russia would want to be broadcast. Right. USA Network.
HBO, we'll be putting them in.
Yeah. So, okay, Drago and Rocky face off finally at the end of Rocky 4. And it is a brutal, brutal bout. As brutal as, a bout that we're not actually hitting each other can be. But apparently, when they were filming this, and Jeff, if you read the same thing that I did, that Lundgren connected with Stallone at one point hit him in the sternum and caused his heart to swell.
Yeah, I heard that. I read that. That's
so
crazy.
that Stallone had to go like immediately to the hospital. Obviously,
stave off death.
They stabilized him, yeah. But
I think he goaded them into it. I think he was saying we need to make this a little more realistic.
Right.
I'm gonna come in, take a couple body shots, and then immediately was like, wait, let me.
Because I think Dolph actually could hit, at 200 pounds of pressure. So.
I think right after this movie, he decided to make Stop or My Mom Will Shoot because he's like, I can't have any more of it. No more boxing.
So this is the fight that gives Rocky his brain damage through the rest of the movies.
Yeah, but he did end the Cold War. So, that nice speech at the end.
He did that speech at the end, and Mikhail Gorbachev stands up and applauds him.
What I'm trying to say is that if I can change...
Я думаю, что каждый тоже изменился сегодня.
And you can change.
Вы можете измениться.
Everybody can change.
Каждый может измениться.
Who I think was the same guy who played Mikhail Gorbachev in the Naked Gun movies. He's got nothing. I look like that guy. Put a stain on my head. Yes. Let's go.
And who was the guy that accompanied Drago to the U.S. that was, the bad guy in this movie that he chokes out at the end? Who was that? Was that his trainer?
I don't know, because he never really had a trainer per se. They just It was like a team.
So when Rocky's giving his speech, Drago is kind of listening to him because at the end he really gets emancipation from this guy. Like when he says, "I fight for me," Drago chokes out this guy with his boxing glove on. You know how hard it would be to open
I was
that
going to say,
get it around somebody's throat?
You can't even put your mouthpiece in. You can't even put your own hood up with those boxers. But he was able to choke him out.
So at the end of this, you don't realize it. I didn't really, you don't really pay attention to this portion of it in 1985. But when Rocky's giving his speech, Drago is listening to him, so he is becoming a sympathetic character at the end of this. But obviously, once he's pushed out of the Soviet Union, his years of hatred kind of kick in. And then that's where we see him in Creed 2.
Poor Drago.
So, yeah. And it was really the last Rocky movie of its kind until we came out with the Creed movies. Because Rocky 5 was kind of a weird departure, I think.
Right. And that was years later, though, right?
It was. That's when we saw the brain damaged Rocky for the first time, really. And who did he fight in Balboa? Rocky Balboa. That movie's very hazy for me.
I don't even remember if he did fight. Wasn't that when he was training the kid?
He did fight. He fought it was a matchup against a younger heavyweight champion.
Yeah, Rocky 5 was the one where he was training the kid, and Rocky Balboa was the one where he came back.
That was Tommy
Gunn.
Tommy Gunn. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all are a blur at some point.
Yeah, so that's, I think, was a disappointment to audiences when Rocky 5 came out because it wasn't the same thing. That they didn't repeat the formula. I think to its detriment. I think you kind of need the formula in these Rocky movies. Like we were saying, you go in, you're expecting something, and you want to be presented that something. So what is your take on Rocky 4, you guys? I find it ridiculous watching it now. There is a little bit more gravitas to it because of the Creed movies, but on the whole, I think it's kind of ridiculous.
It is silly, but the fact that they killed off this character is still pretty hardcore.
It's a little heavy-handed at the end, right? In the Cold War.
The big speech.
Yeah.
Like I said, he single-handedly ended the Cold War.
We didn't mention the missile-like boxing gloves going at each other at the beginning of the movie. Yeah, and the explosion taking place at that. So
we were living in the Reagan era.
Yeah, subtlety was not a strong word in this movie. That was not what they were seeking when they were making this.
Bad guys. Russians were bad guys. It is when we say this, I think every time we go to a classic movie, it's a product of its environment and of its time.
And Stallone was just coming off of Rambo First Blood Part 2. I think that came out the same year as Rocky 4 and earlier so that jingoistic attitude was very prevalent, and what better foe than Russia? And after coming off of Rambo, so
there you go.
Why jingo?
So what would we give this? Where would we take Rocky 4? Knowing it's a product of its time, knowing that it's a little bit hokey.
So for me, coming off of Creed 2, which I thought was 30 minutes too long, I had DVR'd it, and it was on, I don't know, TNT or TBS or something like that at 2 hours. And I thought, how have they done this for 2 hours? And I thoroughly enjoyed it. in so much as they cut out all the stuff that I didn't want to see. So for me, I'm going to go 3.5 popcorn buckets.
3.5?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it. I think it was back to back with Creed on the Paramount Network. And you're right, it was at 2 hours. So you factor in commercials, and that thing was like probably a
yeah, no, I watched it I got it from the library. It's 91 minutes.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't think the scenes that you didn't want to see were even in there to begin with.
No, yeah, I don't know. They cut much out.
Yeah. So I would go, it's Rocky 3 is my jam of the Rocky movies. The Clubber Lang, the Thunder Lips. So I'm going to go like 2.5. I think Rocky 4.
Ooh, that's pretty low. I'll go 3 right in the middle. I did, again, I sat through it. I enjoyed it. You knew exactly what you're getting. I enjoyed the soundtrack probably better than I should have.
I thought the soundtrack was an affront, really, to the Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, which is such a great song. I think that these were just kind of rehashes of that.
Well, I think that's funny. I think that's, I don't know. It's just like, let's recreate this, but let's keep these guys out. We don't want to use them again.
No, but they did. The Burning Heart is
Burning
Survivor.
Heart.
They did use them. Yeah, they did use them.
We need you. We need you to step up again. Yeah, 3. I'll give it 3. Maybe 3.25. Not quite 3.5.
It's still my favorite out of the 3 movies. Between Rocky 4, Creed, and Creed 2.
Wow.
I really like Creed.
Strong words.
I really like Creed. All right, there you go.
So that brings us to our confessional.
Confessionals.
We've got a Stallone flavored confessional this week.
Ooh, what flavor is Stallone?
Yeah, what flavor will you choose? That's the confessional. What is your favorite Stallone either movie or character or both? It could be both. So this allows us to really open up Stallone's oeuvre, as they say. Now, could he say that? I'm not sure.
He's looking up that word right now. Oeuvre. Adrian, I got an oeuvre. When did I order this?
I hope it's with mozzarella.
Is there a robot in it?
So this made me think of Cobra. Jeff, you brought this one up.
I did bring up Cobra, and when you see him in Rocky 4 when they're at a poor Apollo's funeral and he's wearing sunglasses, that's all you get. You go, oh look, he's Cobra.
Yeah, he's Cobra.
He's Cobra. Cobra. Not to be confused with the G.I. Joe bad guy. That's great.
Also, remember Over the Top?
I will tell you right now, that is one of my brother-in-law's favorite movies, and I was just waiting for somebody to bring that up.
I just love the sneer, the Rocky sneer that he gives as he's going over the top.
Yeah! It's that thumb. You gotta pull that thumb. How hard of a sell would it be to actually a whole movie devoted to arm wrestling? And how come they didn't bring in Carl Weathers? Because he had monster pythons. He should have been there.
Well, that scene in Predator between.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's like,
Dylan! You son of a bitch. What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils? Huh?
All right, so who's going first on this?
I'll hit it.
All right,
I think I was torn here a little bit. I'm actually going to go Balboa, Rocky Balboa, the sixth film, because he kind of, matures into his own age. And I enjoyed that character. He seemed to fit the character most of all for that particular film, where he knows that he's old and that he's fighting a younger Mason the Line Dixon. But having said that, I went way back in my memory and came to Victory.
It's a soccer movie.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Is that the soccer movie?
Yeah.
With Pele.
Wow, that was pre-Rock.
No, that was post-Rocky. It was.
Yeah, it had to have been after Rocky. But you're probably still talking 70...
78, 79?
79, something like that, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I couldn't say that I liked his character in it, but I enjoyed the movie immensely. So, I mean, I was kind of in there.
Wasn't Michael Caine in that too?
Yeah, he was the kind of coach.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's playing soccer. I don't think
that was like World War II. They were imprisoned. They were prisoners of war.
Yep.
They had to make their escape during the big game. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That was a really good movie. I forgot all about that.
Man, you pulled that one out.
But to speak to your point about Rocky Balboa, it's that movie that really sets up Rocky the way that you see his character in the Creed movies.
Right.
So anybody that has not seen that's a fan of the 2 Creed movies, go watch Rocky Balboa.
All right, let's see what you have to say. What do you got, Jim?
I would go to the First Blood movie. That is one of my favorites. when that came out, it was neck and neck between that and The Road Warrior for me in 1982. It was my favorite movie of all time, and I think I probably watched them both equally. So I love the character of Rambo, just that whole like deliverance vibe that movie has, without the hillbillies.
Yeah.
It's just gritty and down. I think it's one of the best things that Stallone has done is the first Rambo movie. I could toss away the others, but I really like that first Blood movie.
I'm gonna say the same thing as far as Rambo, character wise, especially in that first one. Like he just wanted to be left alone. Just leave me alone. I'm just wandering through your town. And Joe Don Baker, man, he just had to become a.
Yep.
So Rambo, all of them. But character wise, Rambo. But I'm gonna go with a kind of a newer movie. It came out in 2013. And I don't know if either one of you saw this. Escape Plan. This was with Schwarzenegger, where he actually, for the first time before Expendables, him and Schwarzenegger are in the same movie together. And if memory serves me correct, Stallone plays like this. He created like this prison system where it's impenetrable and you can't escape from it. He designs these prisons, and he somehow gets shafted into being in prison with Schwarzenegger, who's a bad guy, and they now have to team up in order to escape this thing that he designed. And it's actually a really fun movie.
Really? Would you recommend it then, Jeff?
I would recommend it.
All right. Maybe I'll have to check it out then.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably one of those movies, again, it's better than it should be. But just the two of them together, it's fun.
I was always partial to Cliffhanger as well. I thought that was a good one.
That was a good one. I kind of like that. The whole opening shot where he loses the girl, and that's kind of like the... And
just the fact that really inspired the opening shot of Ace Ventura when they... And John Lithgow is the bad guy in that.
Yes, yeah. He was also... There was another movie where he was the bad guy. John Lithgow.
Well, he was the bad guy in Dexter, too. Remember did you watch Dexter?
I did not watch Dexter.
Yeah, he was a serial killer in Dexter.
I think my John Lithgow begins and ends with Harry and the Hendersons and...
Twilight Zone.
But there was Third Rock from the Sun.
Oh, of course.
Which he was a genius in.
Yes.
By the way. So, there you go. Escape Plan was my guess.
All right. Nice, gentlemen. Okay, so... That will bring us to next week's topic. And we're going back to Netflix.
Because we've had such good luck. I think every Netflix movie
nobody's got any time to go to the movies anymore.
I know. It's like... So
they're out there. They're making this stuff. We might as well...
Yeah, I know. We hit The Rain. We hit Hold the Dark. We did... what else did we do? Extinction, Cargo. This is our fifth Netflix attempt. So what we're going to watch...
We're looking for sponsorship if Amazon.
Yeah, sure, yeah. We welcome such.
Yeah, we'll review all your movies, but just expect us to be brutally honest.
So this time, we're seeing that this has gotten some good notices, although Hold the Dark did as well, and that did not pan out. So, but we're going to watch next week Outlaw King with Chris Pine.
Captain Kirk
himself, yes. Outlaw King will be on our agenda next week. And... as a classic feature, we are going to watch Braveheart.
Freedom! You can take my liberty, but you can't take... Whatever it was. I can't even remember the line now.
In those days before Mel Gibson became a punchline, when he was the man. So, yes, I'm looking forward.
Oh, I smell a Confessional already. Mel Gibson. Do you ever see Apocalypto that he directed?
Oh, yeah. I love Apocalypto. I love that.
Holy crap. What a great movie.
Maybe we should do that one of these days.
Yeah. That and Signs, I think, are two of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good choices.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So next week, Outlaw King and
Braveheart. I guess we're going to Scotland.
I guess so.
Freedom. I'll have to break out my kilt. All right. Enjoyable.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, goodbye.
Ciao.
The exposition. So boring. Please, no more. It's so boring.
I must break you.